Welcome to our Engerati studio at the CTICC for the African Utility Week 2014. And here in the studio with us, we have Diego Rodriguez, who is the Senior Economist of the Water Unit, Department of Transport, Water and Information Communication Technology. I think I got all of that in.
Yes,
and you,
well.
of course, represent the World Bank. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having
taking
me.
time out of your schedule. How is the conference going? Are you enjoying it so far?
Yes, very interesting discussions yesterday. We participated in a couple of very interesting sessions on investing in water and on this water and energy food nexus discussion that is ongoing. And it was very nice to see that more and more people are getting more aware of the subject, right?
Yeah, and the turnout
topics.
seems to be improving every year, so there seems to be quite a bit of interest in Africa.
No, there's a lot of interest in Africa because there are a lot of challenges and opportunities in this region as well on many of the topics that we handle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the abundance of the sources that we have here, energy sources, is just phenomenal.
Yes.
And it's about time that they be harnessed. We were just discussing before the interview about the Thirsty Energy program, which was launched in January of this year. Could you expand on that for us? It sounds incredibly exciting.
Sure. The Thirsty Energy initiative that we have, as you said, it was launched in the World Futures Energy Summit in Abu Dhabi in January. And basically it's an initiative that we have in which we are trying to help our client countries, our developing countries, to really understand what are the water use in the energy sector. Not only for hydropower, but water is also required for cooling purposes, sort of thermal. It's required in renewable energies, it's required in coal generation, in shale gas. Very large quantities of water are used during the power generation processes, and we are trying to ensure that the energy sector properly incorporates those water requirements in the planning and investment.
And use it efficiently as well, because I mean, water is it's a really critical resource which is running out, and it needs to be used efficiently. There seems to be a lot of droughts taking place, especially around Africa as well, due to climate change.
No, exactly. There are a lot of issues that affect the water use in many sectors. There's competition also. Yeah. Very large competition from the agricultural sector that is currently using 70 to 80% of the water around the world. We have urbanization. Here in Africa you have the largest rates of urbanization are here. It's growing
significantly.
Significantly. We are estimating that we will have around 200 million more people in urban slums in a few years here in Africa. So you have to provide potable water, you have to give water also to the agricultural sector, to industry, and to energy. So there's competition across these sectors that we have to take into account.
Right.
And the energy sector is, as you said here in Africa, is untapped in many ways. I mean, you have only 7% of the hydropower here is being tapped, or the potential. But you also have countries like here in South Africa where you're still using coal. That also requires water. You have climate change and climate variability that is changing also the demand and the supply of water resources and of energy as well.
Yes.
So it's a very complex set of issues that we need to try and tackle, understand what are the synergies between energy and water, how you can, for example, maximize cogeneration and get benefits from joint investments in water, do integrated planning, so the two sectors must talk to each other, and also understand the trade-offs and the competition of other sectors as well. You cannot plan and design investments in isolation.
No, I mean, there's got to be a holistic view across the board, otherwise,
precisely,
you know, it's not going to be done. How are you actually implementing this strategy? How are you communicating it to project managers, utilities, consumers? How are you getting a message across?
That's one of the main lessons that we learned in the bank in the past few years is that when you start these initiatives that are quite complex, innovative, you have to devote a lot of time also to an advocacy and communications.
Yes.
So we have a very strong communications team that started from day one when we conceptualized the idea.
Yeah.
And we've been in places like in this conference, in Abu Dhabi. Last week we were in London
Right.
with Euromoney talking to water investors, financial specialists,
Yeah.
to send a bit the message across. At the same time, we have a very strong internal advocacy.
Yes.
So we communicate with our specialists in energy, in water, in other sectors, inform about the initiative, and we try to ensure that this initiative is demand-driven. That is, that the countries or our clients come to the bank and request assistance on this.
Right. Okay.
So we are now starting some work here in South Africa with the Energy Research Center of the University of Cape Town,
Yes.
precisely to incorporate water in some of the energy models that have been used in the past in the country
Right.
to plan the energy sector, no? For the next 10 or 20 years. Incorporating also issues such as climate change, and looking also at what are the trade-offs with other sectors.
Yes.
So if you face a water constraint or a water limitation, what happens to water in other sectors?
Yeah.
Can we transfer water from one sector to another?
Actually,
This kind of
sharing
trade-offs.
water across various sectors makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
And you said that there was quite a bit of work being done by the World Bank with regards to this in Morocco as well. Could you expand on that?
Yes, we started a discussion. So in South Africa, it's more of a national type of exercise. In Morocco, it's a bit different. Morocco recently joined two utilities. The energy and water utility became one. Of course, these two utilities are just starting the merger process and the institutional arrangements. But what we saw is obviously that the water part of the utility is planning its sector or its investments in isolation from the energy side.
Yes.
So we are bringing them together to create an investment plan,
Right.
an integrated investment plan, combining energy and water. And in that case, so our client is the utility, and what we're trying to do is not only to look at long-term planning investment, also the impact of climate change. In Morocco, the climate change signal is very strong.
Yeah.
But also trying to see how we can generate some benefits by looking at joint investments. So there are desalination plants, for example, whether we can do some cogeneration, so generate electricity within the desalination plant, or we're looking at this trade-off between expanding transmission lines versus putting a new power plant in an area where maybe there's not enough water.
Yeah.
Morocco has huge concentrated solar panel expansion plans.
Yes.
And in some cases, if you use wet cooling, you require a lot of water.
And also, they also have problems with dust particles over the panels as well. There was this major problem with having to actually get the dust and the sand off the panels. I mean,
exactly. That also requires water.
I mean,
so there are some innovations and some technologies trying to get rid of that.
Is anything truly clean energy, you know?
No, exactly.
Wonder.
I mean, and if you look at concentrated solar, there is wet cooling and dry cooling technologies. But the dry cooling is more expensive, it's less efficient, so that you lose a bit of efficiencies. And there is another set of trade-offs, which is dry cooling may use less water, but with less efficiency, you emit more greenhouse gases.
Right, okay.
So these trade-offs have to be properly understood.
So you really need a balance,
Exactly.
and I'd imagine that every project would be so different and so unique in its characteristics.
Oh yes.
So it's quite a big project. I mean, how many people do you have working on this Thirsty Energy project?
Oh yes. Well, we have a core team of specialists. So we have economists, hydrologists, energy specialists, energy modelers, technology people, and that we have a core team in the bank, and then in each country we also set up a local team. No? So here with UCT, I think in the University of Cape Town we have around 5 people working with us on this,
so
plus
this is really
5 or 10.
Global.
This is global.
This is going across continents.
Yes, across continents and very diverse type of problems. We are starting also a dialogue in China.
Right.
With the National Energy Agency, because they are starting the new 5-year energy plan, and they want to make sure that they incorporate the water constraints or the water limitations in the coming plan.
Right.
Huge problems also, very dry areas,
Okay.
which they have very large expansion plans for shale and coal. They are looking also at thermal.
Right.
So a lot of these plants are starting to get very old, and then they need retrofitting.
Yeah.
And in China, water is a very, very serious problem.
Very scarce.
Very
commodity.
scarce, yes.
Yeah. Now, I mean, if I had to approach the World Bank for investment with my project, and you could see that perhaps there was not a very efficient use of water, or I mean, could I be turned away, or would you assist my project, or would you help me try and find a way to make it more water efficient as well? Is that what your what your staff are doing?
That's part of our role.
Doing?
Yes.
So you won't put your stamp on that project until that has been looked at, or that has been rectified in some way.
Yes, there are a lot of requirements that we have when we look at the investment side.
Yeah.
On Thirsty Energy, we try to do more the analytical work that can lead probably to better investments, better investment designs.
Yes.
And at the investment level, we have a series of requirements, and some of them are obviously looking at these potential trade-offs and competition for the sectors. So we try and look at if there's enough water resources, if they have been properly assessed,
Exactly,
the needs, the physical requirements or the physical needs for the resource.
Right.
If you have enough of the resource, or if you don't, what type of mitigation or correction measures you're going to have. You may change your investment designs, right?
Right.
To make sure that there's less water intensive.
Yeah.
And that's part of our role in the water unit.
Okay.
To screen a lot of the projects.
That would come into bankability. So when people come in, I mean, there are a wide variety of requirements that you look at, and what are the main things that are cropping up all the time that perhaps is not making a project bankable? Where you perhaps are refusing. I know the World Bank invests in a lot of projects, but I'm sure there must be a lot of projects that you turn away because they're just not viable, or they're just not bankable. What are the main problems with those projects?
For us, bankability is something that we're constantly working on improving, because it boils down to capacities at the country level.
Yeah.
It's a capacity to design a project, to design an investment. And that has obviously many requirements, from having a good institutional assessment, financial and economic analysis, which is in many cases very weak, environmental assessments, the technical designs with alternative options for the designs. Putting that package together is quite a challenge for many countries. So a lot of the work that we do also as part of the investment lending is to provide capacity for the countries to improve that, to improve the tools and the methods and the analytics that is required to put a package together.
So really just give them that support to move it a notch closer to harness that project and get it going. Just my final question, because unfortunately our time is limited. We could go on forever.
Yes.
I've got many questions, but I'll have to catch up with you afterwards. What has been has there been anything that has jumped out at you at the conference? Any disappointments, perhaps? Maybe things aren't changing? Perhaps you're excited by opportunities that you see? What have you seen at the conference that has got your attention?
Yeah, I'm more excited by how things... how some of these dialogues in very complex issues, like the water and energy nexus, in a conference that I thought it was going to be more limited in the terms of discussions, so it was going to be more on the energy utility level and the water utility level. Yesterday we had a full room, and the discussions on this water and energy also basically moved also to the food discussion. So the water and energy and food discussion.
It's all interrelated.
It's all interrelated, but it's very good to see that the utilities are also taking into account these problems now, the complexities. They are also starting to feel there is competition for the resource, that water that they are treating can be used by other sectors, such as energy or the agricultural sector. So it was quite interesting to see that there's much more awareness And this is a dialogue that only started maybe a couple of years ago globally.
So it's very delayed. It's very...
Yes, we've been always dealing with this, but not on this nexus thinking that really tries to integrate and move away from sometimes this water-centric view that we have of things in the sector.
Well, I suppose all viewpoints have to be looked at. All sectors are interrelated, all sources are interrelated, and it's good to know that the World Bank is behind it and has developed this initiative, Thirsty Energy.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be catching up with the World Bank later to, just to get more information on it. But unfortunately, we're going to have to close. I wish you a fantastic conference and much success. Thank you for joining us. To our viewers, thank you for joining us. And just remember that we have a number of interviews throughout the 2 days at the conference, so please feel free to have a look at them. Thank you.